Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning and being patient with us as we all try to navigate the current situation and switching over webinar platforms. So today's webinar is presented by Newland Associates, and they'll be covering what's new with Predictive Index in 2020. My name is Hannah Matevia, and I am the Programming and Communications Coordinator with GrowFL. If you're not familiar with GrowFL, our mission is to provide strategies, resources, and support to second stage companies for next level growth. And we do this in a few different ways. One is our System for Integrated Growth program, formerly known as Strategic Research. Another is peer learning opportunities, like our CEO Roundtable program. And lastly is leadership development, like the webinar you're on this morning, and our Florida Companies Watch program, which is in its 10th year this year. We also have a manufacturers business growth program through our partnership with Florida Makes. And this is a program that will provide strategies for success in areas like human resources, operations, finance, and more. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can visit our website for more information. So just a few housekeeping things before we get started today. The webinar will be recorded and sent out after it concludes, along with the slide deck and the speaker information. So with that, I will turn it over to our presenters, Jill Seeley and Robert Newland from Newland Associates.
Thank you, Hannah. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great.
Great. So this is Robert Newland. I'm here with Jill Seeley. We're going to talk today about what's new with Predictive Index, and there's a lot of good stuff that we want to cover. I know that Hannah just mentioned the housekeeping rules. I'll just go over them again. The webinar is being recorded. Type in any questions that you may have. We already have some from when you all registered, so we'll cover some of those as well. If not, Elle Dean at Newland CP, at Lisa Dean, our marketing coordinator, she can also help you with that. If you want to learn more about some of our podcasts, articles, etc., if you go to newland-associates.com/thought-leadership, you can also get a lot of interesting articles. Oh, by the way, we're going to be posting more information there in the near future, also a page regarding the coronavirus COVID-19 situation. Before we begin, I do want to mention a little bit about our firm, Newland Associates. We like to work with companies figuring out how to align talent strategy to business strategy. This is very important for organizations. Many of them have a plan, but like I like to say, we don't help them build a strategy, but we help them put the people pieces around them, and that can get manifested whether it is executive search, leader development, executive coaching, analytics, like the predictive index that we'll discuss today, traditional HR advisor, HR consulting services, and unfortunately outplacement, which is services when employers lay off employees. And unfortunately, we are beginning to see a lot of that work right now, which is a bit of a telltale of things to come. Two more things about our firm. We're a shareholder of Career Partners International. Career Partners International LLC is a group of around 60 firms with operations in over 50 countries. It's the third largest talent management consultancy specializing in leader development, executive coaching, and outplacement. And we are, of course, a certified predictive index partner. With that, I want to introduce my friend Jill Seeley. She's sitting here with me. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Robert.
She's going to be doing a lot of the talking today. She's our VP Talent Management Services here at the firm, and I'm Robert Newland. And something that we're going to do today that was not scheduled, but we want to cover it anyway. We're going to finish the presentation talking a little bit about, HR do's and don'ts given the coronavirus COVID-19 situation. We will do that after the Q&A. Hannah and GrowFL asked us to cover some of that because it's such a timely discussion, and even yesterday we're going back and forth emails with clients and friends of the firm. Should I do this? Should I do that? So we certainly want to take this opportunity to do that. So now I'm going to give the mouse to Jill so she can start driving, and we shall begin. Jill.
This is an a moment in time that we need to remember, because he doesn't ever let me touch the mouse.
That's true. And I asked her to sanitize because, you want to be coronavirus safe. But so let's begin. What is this whole talent optimization thing that we're talking about here, Jill?
Well, Robert, talent optimization is really just a different way to think about talent. Most leaders agree that their biggest business problems are people problems. And the hard part with people problems is that it really can be difficult to objectively identify and address them. Confronted with this, we look internally and we find that we are bad at putting people in the right roles. And we're doing too little to prepare and train our managers and future leaders. So we're plagued with poor job fit, bad management, poor team dynamics,
right,
and poor cultures. And talent is arguably the last big differentiator a business has. It's what stands between average companies and innovative companies. So talent optimization is really how Predictive Index helps companies perform better and helps employees to be happier, more engaged, and more productive.
So I mean, you are going to be preaching to the choir, but the question then becomes, are you seeing a shift in terms of CEO's mindset when it comes to this, or are we still sort of where we were before?
Great question. In a study conducted by the Predictive Index of CEOs, 2 out of the top 3 challenges facing their CEOs are talent related. So companies struggle with finding the right talent, and they feel their people are not aligned with their strategy.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, the cost is high to organization, so it does make a lot of sense, right?
Right. And is it surprising to you that more than 50% of CEOs' labor costs are, or I'm sorry, 50% of CEOs' costs are labor related? I think CEOs spend a lot of time planning areas like finance, but lack in planning around talent. But the data shows that CEOs responding that strategy and talent are the most important priorities. And that's where Predictive Index methodology can help. With PI, you can take an objective, systematic approach to understanding people, and you can use that insights to improve the way they work. With the right people data in hand, you've got a better working environment and a better world.
Okay. Well, I'm like many of the participants that are here. I'm going to see a peer group, and we are seeing the shift in the discussion. So it's becoming more at the forefront of our conversations, at least in our CEO peer group.
Sure, and these concerns have been common across the board. And Predictive Index started to really listen to all of these concerns and take note, and found that while we were helping clients tactically, in the past, we weren't doing a good job supporting them strategically. So we had to build a new science, new training, technology, digital learning, and this is where Predictive Index talent optimization methodology was born. It's been developed so, again, you can take that objective, systematic approach to understanding your people and use the resulting insights to improve the way they work.
Well, I mean, I've seen it, and it does sound a little bit like the easy button, but is it complex in your view, or how do companies go around adopting this?
Great question. And the answer, it's pretty easy. By design, PI created a methodology by which you can take this objective, systematic approach to understanding your people and use the resulting insights to improve the way we work. So let's kind of take a look at the start of the year. Perhaps every January, companies start with their strategy because they want to achieve certain results, right? And it determines where they're going. It gives a sense of direction for the entire organization and helps them to make decisions. So once the business strategy has been established, the company is taking action to achieve very specific business results.
Right.
And then at the end of the year, 1 of 2 things happened. Either they met their goals or they didn't, right?
Right.
If they didn't meet their goals, usually it is because this whole blank space in between, right? It's their talent and the people part of the equation just isn't clicking.
Right, and I agree, this becomes an issue because, I mean, every business thinks about, finance, profit. Even when they look at operations, they seem to think of talent as a given that has to work.
Right, and really what we see is they start with a very simple design, and many times they don't realize that there's equally important people data, and it can help them succeed with the talent strategy the way that business data helps them manage their finances. And so talent optimization is designed to help you create that talent strategy that's going to enable you to execute your business. So what we do is it doesn't just magically happen. You have to be intentional about how you're going to accomplish this with your talent. And this is the design phase, and it's a solution that bridges the gap between talent strategy and business strategy. And think of design as putting your basic talent infrastructure in place. It's where businesses figure out how the organizations should be structured and how things are going to get done.
So when you look at this, is this a one-time thing, or how does this work?
No. So basically, businesses should really look at design every time that there's a major change in the organization. And a great example of that is what we're going through right now with COVID-19. And we're seeing unprecedented measures in our society and in business and in our economy. And no matter what people's strategy was at the beginning of the year, they're going to have to reassess that for sure. I don't know many industries or organizations who won't be impacted in their strategy in some way.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And from a process standpoint, I love for you to show, everybody here how this works.
Sure. Basically, they simply start with a strategy assessment, and they determine what are the top 5 things, the most critical things first, and really the 20% you need to get absolutely right.
Right. But the challenge that we always find then is CEOs say, we have multiple priorities, and can we get everybody rowing in the same direction, right? We have executives with different priorities. How do we get them aligned?
Great point. And the design aptitude is all about strategy alignment. Okay. In order to achieve the targeted business results, you've really got to align the talent infrastructure to your business strategy. And it includes elements such as ensuring your organization is structured in a way that makes sense for the business strategy. The senior leadership team is, of course, a critical piece of executing the strategy. Therefore, you've got to evaluate the degree to which the leader's behavioral style align with the strategy itself.
Right.
So, for example, what if your strategy is highly focused on innovation? However, a lot of the members of the leadership team aren't naturally wired to drive innovation. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't have some leaders in your organization who are innovative coming up in the months to come, and figuring out how their businesses can pivot and to make it in what's going to be a new reality, then you're going to be missing the boat. And understanding who those leaders are is just as important as understanding the dynamics of the senior team. How are they going to work together cohesively to make decisions, communicate, and take action? And lastly, you've got to purposefully establish an organizational culture, and it's got to be tightly aligned to reinforce the behaviors that support the business strategy.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Sure. And helping clients improve structurally, like they've got to clarify their strategy, and it simplifies how to approach complex questions. And what we do with this is it builds confidence that they can execute and helps ensure leaders have the right stuff to execute that strategy, and also removes friction that gets in the way of getting the business, things like culture, engagement, and other factors that all relate to talent.
Okay.
And, we take strategy, make it clear, agreed upon, and framed in terms of people in order to get results.
All right, so share with us, why is it so important? Everybody agrees with this.
Good question. Let's unpack this. And one of the things we have to make sure is that it's explicit. We have to make sure it's agreed upon. And we have to make sure that everybody is framing it in people terms.
Right.
And, I'll tell you why we really want to concentrate on this, Robert.
Well, I mean, we're Floridians. I just want to stop you there because you have Tom Brady. He must have a Tampa Bucks jersey next time you do this webinar. Go on.
I was just this just happened last night. Well, give me a little bit of slack.
We could have fixed it, but go ahead.
So let's unpack alignment for a second. What about winning the Super Bowl? Do you think if the 70% of the team is on the same playbook that they're going to win? When you're being wheeled into surgery, are you comfortable if the doctors or nurses are operating at 70% agreement? Business experts know that it's got to be 100% agreement of your leadership, and it's critical to business success. In fact, a study by BCG identified the most common pattern around business failure is the lack of agreement among the leaders that trickle down and middle management levels of the organization. And it makes sense because what those managers are communicating to the people doing the work, that's who's getting the work done.
Right. So I know you have more research. Can you share, what you're finding in terms of alignment?
Sure. On average, we found that executive teams are about 70% in agreement. And is that good enough? I think, in a high stakes game, nothing short of 100% agreement is good enough.
Are we talking about the Tampa Bucks again and the quarterback?
We'll see how that works out for the Bucks.
Okay.
All right. But, other than football, what's more high stakes than your business strategy, Robert?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So there's really 4 steps in understanding the agreement and alignment piece. The first step is that organizations have their executive team take the assessment and gain agreement.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece is that they understand the executive capabilities based on their behavioral profiles. They
Right.
evaluate the entire team dynamics, and then they create a talent blueprint.
Interesting. So I guess I'm going to use your phrase for, can you unpack that for us a bit more?
Yes, I love to say unpack. I don't know.
love
it just, brings it all out of the suitcase and into
Yep.
the open. So when we look at mapping strategy, there's really 4 types of strategic activities. The first is exploring, and it's focused on pursuing new opportunities and investigating innovations. It's all about being nimble and flexible, broad rather than focused, and being willing to experiment with new things. And what success looks like in terms of results is that new product and services that are unique to the market.
Mm-hmm.
Second strategy is cultivating. It's a focus on employee commitment, morale, and development. And there's an inwardly focused innovation towards employee cohesion. This is also going to be very important going forward. Success in terms of results looks at a high employee engagement and participation. Third, we've got stabilizing. It's a focus on improving efficiency and predictability and entrepreneurial goals pursued aggressively but selectively. And this is when the results are framed around coaxing higher performance out of existing offerings to ensure customer loyalty.
Right.
And then lastly, we've got producing, and that's focused on accumulating clients and building reputations in the field. Competitive tactics focus on price, positioning, and delivery to outmaneuver competition. And when we see results based on this area of strategy, we look at high market penetration and market share.
So let me ask you something about that, because I know a lot of the growth companies use traction, and one of the things that I like about traction is that it simplifies things. And this is really, really great, but it looks rather complex, right? So how does an organization know where they need to focus?
You're right. A lot of organizations have initiatives that centered around multiple priorities. And the key is determine what are the critical priorities over the next 12 to 18 months. So you really need to know your silent killers, Robert. And at this point, strategy is explicit, and it's you need to highlight the areas of disagreement. Mm-hmm. So you can be 100% aligned that we're going to pursue this, but if 50% of your team says this is something we pursue and 50% says we do not, that's where you get miscommunication, and that's where you need to bring the strategy into alignment and get everybody rowing in the same direction.
So again, because I am a fan of traction, I don't know how many of you out there, the audience use it, but I think what you're saying, or at least what I'm thinking, is that even if you use traction, you can probably use this to kind of boil it down to what are your 3 to 5 critical strategies so that you can succeed. But then how do you go from setting them up to then executing on them?
Yeah, so now you've got the explicit agreed upon and your strategy framed in people terms. But the bad news is misalignment of talent and the strategy can still cause issues. And what we do is we refer back to these 4 strategic activities. We can then, once we have our strategy in place, we can also then map that with our people.
All right, go ahead, unpack it further, will you?
So as you see, if you're familiar with the PI, and I know a lot of people on this call are probably somewhat familiar with the 17 reference profiles. And so what PI has done is been able to map these types of profiles to these different areas of strategy. And the PI behavioral assessments are really used along with strategy assessments to look at the profiles most likely to be hardwired for execution for each strategy.
Okay.
So here's a few examples of the insights generated by combining the strategy assessment and the behavioral assessment.
Okay.
Okay, once the team has really taken both, we can drill down, we can tell where the team is misaligned and focus on gaining agreement in those areas. And it's amazing how executive teams respond and the value that they find in just looking at the results. I was walking through one of our clients, walking them through this exercise, and there was this moment when I showed this, I'll kind of go into this report and I pulled it up, right? And again, it shows kind of anonymously, you know, what we pursue and what we're not pursuing. And as I was showing him these results, there was just dead silence. And the CEO was convinced before we started this workshop that strategy was clear. He was like, no, we are in a cohesive team. We are rowing in the same direction. And what happened is that it really helped them to open dialogue and bring those silent killers and those issues to the table that can derail our strategy, right? It broke up the hidden issues and things that people hadn't considered. And they had some wonderful discussions about their perceptions and how they were trickling down into their teams.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, bringing clarity and alignment really gave them a sigh of relief and helped to get them re-energized. And I was told that they felt like they were truly all on the same page for the first time. So as we started to discuss their strategy, we looked at the core behavioral hardwiring of the team, and we could discuss the challenges that they've been having with the strategy around cultivating, right? And you can see in this depiction where the blue is their people and where they're hardwired, right? And the purple is their strategy. So you can see that the biggest areas or lack of executive alignment was in the area of cultivating, which was their core focus.
Well, I want to stop there, and you're in a role here, but I just want to showcase something. Organizations talk about transparency all the time, and there's plenty of research that suggests that organizations that are transparent outperform those that are not. But oftentimes we think of transparency in terms of showing financial results, sales results, and things like that. But the ultimate transparency is showing who you are behaviorally. But this is taken it to a whole other level because it's showing team behavioral patterns aligned to strategy, and then you can very clearly, on a data-driven fashion, ascertain where there are gaps, and it takes a lot of the drama. So I guess my question is, what's next to get results, right?
Well, perfect. Yeah, and it does take a lot of the fuzziness out of human behavior and how do you map behaviors and personalities to concrete strategies. So when we look at the model again, most of us are familiar with hire and inspire, but when we've begun with design, we can better determine how to both hire and inspire.
Right.
Hire, the aptitude is about candidate fit, and to successfully execute the business strategy, you've got to get the right talent into the right roles. So the hire piece of PI is all about job fit, and it goes beyond looking at just job fit though. You've also got to equip your leaders to find the candidate that's the best fit for the needs. And it's accomplished by ensuring that you're using people data, and just like you mentioned, to have that objective data to look at and to present to leaders with only the highest caliber candidates. Also, when leaders are preparing to interview those high potential candidates, you can further use that people data to identify the best interview questions. And PI has a tool that gives you specific ones for confirming their strengths and probing areas around concerns where there's misalignment. So, you know, when you make a new hire and add them to a team, you're creating a new team. And so it's critical that you understand the behavioral styles of those candidates and how that is going to impact the existing team and predict how those dynamics might play out in order to assess candidate team fit. Like they might have to do that with Tom Brady.
No, we're good. We're good.
So
I think the other guy that took out because of that issue. So we're going to be good with this guy.
Right. Well, not only do you have job fit and making sure the person works with the team, but they've got to be a good fit for the company and the culture. The culture fit's got to be evaluated to ensure candidates are going to act in ways that are going to reinforce what you've built and feel like they're a good fit for the organization.
Well, two things there. One is that, you know, you've heard many times culture eats strategy for breakfast. And and many organizations, especially the ones that are not as large, that don't have experts in learning and development, they may think that, culture is something we can just write a bunch of values on a piece of paper, but culture is what happens every day. And if you bring people onto the wrong fit, it's likely the culture is not going to be good. But now, I get this is for hire, but tell us about how do we use this when there are no job openings, and furthermore, now what we're beginning to see as some companies need to trim staff, how can PI in this fashion help them redevelop roles and see where people can fit today in roles that are going to be recreated? Because if you have less people, you're going to have people that have to do more tasks. How do they look for fit on that?
Sure. And this was also a question we got from one of the participants who are listening.
We can get one off the list. Go ahead.
Yeah. We were asked, how would you go about making sure that you have the right people in the right positions? And do you use predictive index before you hire? And what happens if you have people already on board?
Okay.
So that's a great question. And it goes exactly to what the hire aptitude is all about. Even if you don't have a current need to hire an external candidate into an open job, you can still use the hire approach, and you should still use it internally with existing employees for promoting an employee into a higher level role, moving an employee into a lateral role, or assigning an employee to a special project or task force, providing an additional responsibility to existing job, even if that's only temporary. And we may see a lot of that, right?
We may see a lot of that. That is very, very true. So providing a growth assignment opportunity to a high potential employee goes back to design and aligning with strategy and culture.
Absolutely. And this is where the Inspire aptitude comes into play. So the Inspire aptitude is all about employee productivity and engagement. And it includes elements like creating compelling career paths for employees, developing capabilities of your leaders to make sure they're enhancing self-awareness and strengths of, and realizing development areas and understand how to better manage relationships with others. Most work gets accomplished in teams, so you've got to invest in improving group dynamics, such as communication and decision making. In design, we talk about intentionally creating a culture that supports your business strategy. However, if left unmonitored, you can lose that culture you worked really hard to create. So Inspire is about reinforcing and maintaining your culture through communication, recognition, and rewards.
Okay, so I mean, it's pretty substantial what we're seeing here. It's like a quantum leap for predictive index, but how do we make sure people are actually clear on strategy and engaged? How do we put it together?
Sure, I mean, at this point, talent optimization has already accomplished a lot. Right. So in design, you've aligned your talent infrastructure with a business strategy.
Correct.
In hire, you're focusing on candidate fit to get the right people and the right roles. Inspire, you're developing employees to maximize productivity and engagement. You've successfully now aligned your talent strategy with your business strategy, but you still need to continually monitor your talent strategy to make sure that it's working. And that's where the fourth aptitude, the diagnose piece, is critical.
Okay.
So diagnose is about monitoring people data, and you understand what's working and what's not working, and then you take action to make adjustments. So it includes measuring what matters. I hear you say this weekly, especially about sales. If you don't measure it, it doesn't matter, right? You can accomplish this through tools such as employee experience surveys to measure engagement.
Right.
You analyze the data. For employee experience survey data, this is about identifying takeaways, such as celebrating the successes of the organization, and also extracting your blind spots and key opportunities for improvement. And then really prescribing improvement actions. Once you've identified those improvement areas, you've got to take action to drive positive change. And this is going to enhance the health of your talent strategy and increase the likelihood that your organization is going to achieve targeted business results.
So I understand the cost of engagement. It's huge for organizations. And I think your next slide is going to show us some numbers around that, right?
Yeah. The United States wastes $500 billion in employee disengagement every year. The average 350-person company wastes $3 million per year in lost productivity due to disengagement. So, I mean, think about that and how it plays out in your organization, right?
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you're talking about 2/3 of companies using engagement data, but just about 1 in 5 employees are actively engaged. So it's like a big disconnect between what we're measuring, if you're measuring, and what is actually accomplishing. So I think one of the issues that you see is that engagement surveys can kind of help you see problems at a high level, but they're really being prescriptive in terms of what you can do with that information. Because I mean, I am familiar with them. I've seen many engagement surveys over my years. I'm in the business,
Right.
but they don't tell, okay, here's a problem, but what do you do with it?
You're right. And I think it's a pretty commonly understood and known fact amongst people who do what we do, Robert, which is consult around employee engagement, that one of the best ways to disengage your employees is to do a survey and then do nothing.
Yes.
So using data that pinpoints and prescribes shows you the world in technicolor. You don't just see problems in black and white, but also the causes and the roadmaps to fix them. So according to Forbes, highly engaged teams are 21% more productive than teams with low engagement. And more engaged employees produce higher quality products or services, which increases customer satisfaction, loyalty. So the PI Diagnose solution is your secret weapon to making talent your competitive edge. Diagnose is a 3-step process to unlocking productivity and profitability. And we look at 1, 2, and 3. And you take the survey. The second piece is there's experience coaching. And then the third piece is to take action on engagement. And that's workshops that you do in conjunction with your PI consultant and your partner. So let's look a little bit about some of the differentiators of the employee and experience survey and other products that are, it shows scores across dimension of 4 key areas. There's the job fit, manager alignment, interactions with the team, and organizational culture. And then it compares those results to a benchmark. PI has developed this really cool algorithm where it actually ranks. You can see these little high, moderate, low.
Yep.
It ranks them in terms of the potential areas that have the most impact on engagement. And so it eliminates the guesswork and gets you exactly where you need to go, tackling the most important issues first.
So it's not just issues in engagement, but which ones have the most impact in the organization.
Correct.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the results are scientifically validated, meaning that it accurately measures what it says it measures. And the surveys are broken down again by job fit, manager, people, and organization. And it connects those dots between engagement results and the actual root of the problem. So there's no more guessing where to start.
That's pretty awesome.
After you collect all these survey results, the organization report gives you an overview of the responses from all the departments and teams. And then it's divided into an overall engagement score. So as well as individual scores related to 4 categories that affect employee experience, job, manager, people, and organization. And I repeat those again and again because those are the 4 biggest areas of disalignment, right? That's where we have to align the things in our organization. So the strengths and the blind spots, you can see right here. It becomes the basis for your action plan, and it shows you where to start focusing right away.
So we're no longer worried about just data, but now we have actually steps with the data. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So the action plans, that's really the secret weapon when it comes to the how of solving a problem. It fills the void, what most engagement surveys leave, by connecting your data to results. And being armed with an action plan instills confidence in your employees by showing that, you know what, you're listening. And not only are you listening, but you're doing something about it, right? Also, it shows heat maps that give you very high-level insights into the work experience across the teams. So this helps paint an instant picture of where teams and managers are excelling and struggling. And it identifies managers who might need a little bit more support to take action.
So, I mean, it seems simple, but I do know that when you talk to companies about engagement, it seems like a really daunting, task.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, a lot of people felt that way, especially around employee engagement. It's one of the most sort of dynamic, fickle things I think people can embark on. And PI definitely took that into consideration to bring all of this together and developed specific coaching and workshops, which are really the elements for increasing engagement, productivity, and profitability. And the experience coaching and the take action on engagement workshop are just critical pieces of the diagnose solution. And it's because they provide that step-by-step guidance that's not just blanket overview. It's very highly tailored and specifically aligned to your organization's challenges, and gives you that expert support and insights that you really can't get anywhere else.
Agreed. This was really good in the sense that, you know, I guess going back to your last slide, there are a lot of surveys on engagement out there, but to get training around what to do with it. So this is not a training on the engagement survey, but it's a training on the output of the engagement survey. And that's just really powerful. And I know that you wanted me to read this, and I will. And it's a great statement from one of the predictive index clients. And I mean, you can read it yourselves, but, you know, mentioning really surveys like this and Gallup and other surveys are not doing is that, you know, this one doesn't require that you have to figure out the results. It brings the data to the team, and the person says, I really haven't seen not only this level of granularity in a product, but really how employees can also make it meaningful to themselves. And the fact that it's integrated with the hiring tool, that's great. These end-to-end solutions don't really exist out there in the market. And I think that's why, you know, we tell these people all the time, we're not just a predictive index shop. I mean, we are an end-to-end talent management firm, but one of the reasons why we incorporate predictive index to our toolbox is because when you're looking at technology that you want an end-to-end solution, it's just tremendous.
Right. It's like having the easy button.
Yep.
Right. Another quote by one of our clients is, with the strategy assessment, they were able to overcome some major obstacles they were having, actually, and they're now in the black. And to see a client, it's so rewarding in what we do. And because at the end of the day, we're problem solvers, right? So when we get to go into a client and see them operating in the red, and we can do something so simple and so prescriptive and get them to turn their business around, that's really why we love what we do.
Yeah, it almost gets us out of the consulting business. They can do it without us, which is great, because we're not trying to make ourselves, you know, absolutely needed for our clients. We can afford our clients tools and technologies that allow them to more cost effectively manage issues like engagement. And I'll go further back to this, which is when you look at an organization, for example, when you look at your sales pipeline, you're not looking at your sales, you're looking at your activity at the beginning of the pipeline, right? How many cold calls, right? How many sales calls, right? How many proposals? But I think that when you're looking at business performance, if you're just looking at that and you're not looking at engagement early on and how it ties to strategy and execution, I think that you can look at all the pipeline reports you want all day, but the issue why they may not be working may be on the talent angle, not really on the sales component, which is a consequence of people.
Right. And, you know, a lot of companies hire a lot of talented people, and we can have a bunch of talented people working individually, but if we can get them to work cohesively together towards a common goal, then we can accomplish a lot more. And I love what Michael Jordan says, talent wins game, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships.
Yeah, and you can put it together the way predictive index is doing now. It's just fascinating to me. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is, you know, tremendous insight how predictive index has gone from a tool for assessments that you could use for hiring into such a fascinating tool that it's so complete. And, you know, we want to share with you a couple of things. I want to ask everybody, if you can get your phones out, I'm going to give you a moment. We have a camera so we can see you.
That's not true.
Come on, you too. Get your camera. Get your camera. Come on, don't be lazy. There you go. Thank you. Now, I want you to point the camera on your phone to where it says scan me. And I'm going to do it myself so you can see how easy it is. And when you do that, what you're going to get instantaneously is access to a QR code. And that QR code is going to give you access to a place on our website where you can download the 2020 State of Talent Optimization. I think that is a great resource, that it's a great, I guess, companion to what we talked about today.
It really breaks it down and gives some great data and insights around talent optimization and the effects that it has.
Yeah, and while people are trying to figure out how to use their camera on their phones, can we go through some of the Q&A? I know we have, you know, one or two or three more.
Yeah, we did answer the one question about how you go about making sure that you've got the right people in the right positions. One of the questions that came in, and I love this question, is what type would be a good complement to a Maverick? Well, as a resident Maverick, if you asked Robert, he would tell you nobody can get along with a Maverick because they're just pain.
Not true. You say I'm a closet Maverick. So
yeah, you want to be a Maverick. You're trying. The truth is, any profile can get along and complement any profile. I always tell people the easiest relationships that you'll ever have are with people who are wired like you. The most difficult are people who are wired different, but the most productive working relationships are a lot of times people who are wired differently. And it's not about what profile that person is, it's about how the managers on that team are aligning their teams. It's about whether those individuals are self-aware. Are they given teams to understand, or I'm sorry, are they giving tools to understand themselves, but also the people they're working with, and how to best communicate? And really going back to my favorite expression, Robert, it's not the golden rule. It's not about treating others how we want to be treated. It's about the platinum rule, which is treating others how they need to be treated.
Yeah, and you know, before you go to the next question, I always like to mention this. Many years ago, I was asked to interview a number of CEOs from large companies about their keys to success. I remember meeting one who told me years ago, well, I get to the office by 7:30 and never leave before 6:30 p.m. And I take stock of who's here, because the ones that work the hours that I do are the ones that I know that are going to help me build this company. And he was, you know, this company made nearly $1 billion in yearly revenue. So I'm thinking, yeah, well, that's kind of okay, but not everybody is wired that way. I didn't tell this man that, but I think we need to be careful when, to your point, when we want to get people, you know, as CEOs, as founders, as senior leaders, we want to get people that are like us. That is not always the best thing, because, if, for example, many founders or CEOs are big into vision. And again, I want to go to, you know, to the concept of what is somebody that can help you implement a vision. If you get somebody that is just like you, that's not going to help. If everybody is just into a big vision, then, you know, you're not going to succeed. Anyway.
Especially if that's not what your strategy is based upon.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
We just learned that. Again, we answered, I think, the second question about, you know, what happens if you have people already on board and using predictive index for hiring. But I love this last question. And Robert, I'm going to ask this question. I'll let you take it away, because I think this goes into the sort of bonus piece of what we're doing today. So how can Predictive Index and Newland Associates help employers and employees under the new remote working conditions, and help with the possible new normal due to COVID-19?
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's a good segue to what we're going to talk about a little bit now, just for a few minutes. We're not going to make a whole new webinar on this today, but just to give everybody a picture of what is going on. We are entering a recession. Inevitably, this is not a political perspective, it's just a reality. We still don't know what this is going to look like. Is it going to be a few months or many months or going into next year? But for sure, some things are going to change, that you're going to start seeing changing consumer behaviors and change on workplace behaviors. I still don't know, but I suspect that as with things of this magnitude, we're going to come out the other side with changed behaviors that we may never go back to the way we were. So it kind of takes me to, before I get to some HR do's and don'ts that I put together, that back to PI and strategy and using it to align people. The new normal may be different. So I'm thinking, Jill, you probably don't want to just use it for this situation.
No,
but every
time,
other side,
right?
When the new normal begins, if it's different from your past, you probably want to use it again.
There is not an organization that exists that will not need to reassess its people and its strategy after we navigate, and as we navigate through what's happening in current events.
So let's get a little bit more HR now. And so here are a couple of don'ts that I wanted to share with you. Is, you know, as you're dealing from a people and HR standpoint with what's going on, the first don't is, you know, don't make decisions without understanding HR policies. And also notice that there are a lot of last minute guidelines, whether it is from federal government, it can be from the state government, and those changes are important. It may have to do with what you can and cannot do with employees, whether it is help with paid leave, for example, but also what are your policies around leave, right? And make sure that you comply with them. The other one is, people are worried. Don't tell them, it's not a big deal. You want to address everyone and give them, as I say here, your time and attention and address those concerns, because if they go unattended, they're just going to fret. They're going to have concerns over it. And we've seen a lot of organizations in our experience with, major layoffs and outplacement, when there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of worry by employees. And when that happens, they're prone to make mistakes. And in certain organizations, that can be detrimental to the outcome of a client service. In other organizations, it can be detrimental to the health of clients. If you're in manufacturing and you're producing a pharmaceutical product, and things come out because employees are fretting and you're telling them, ignore it, just get back to work, that's a problem. The other one is, don't discriminate by providing different levels of support based on gender, race, ethnicity, etc. That's really, really important. I was talking to a friend yesterday. He was asking me about, we may need to lay off, a number of people. And I said, great, I understand this happens. However, if the organization is large enough, make sure that you don't have a situation where a supervisor that may have a personal issue with somebody uses this situation as subterfuge to lay off somebody that may be in a protected group, because then you're not only going to have to deal with coronavirus and the impact in your workplace and the impact on your overall business, but you're also going to end up being sued and likely losing. So make sure that when you're asking for feedback for your managers and supervisors in terms of actions you need to do, if you need to lay off employees, that you're doing it in a way that is non-discriminatory. Okay. Lastly, don't wait for facilities to be, when the government says, okay, everybody go home. No, if you can't do it now, do it. I mean, for us, a lot of our team kind of works from home already. We just have a very small group of employees here, and right now we have a number of them that feel better working from home. We came here for this webinar today, but a lot of us are working remote. We're blessed in the sense that our business allows us to do that. But if you can't make the adjustments, please do. Many people want to do it, and right now I was hearing a commentary by a professor that specializes in infectious diseases from a university in New York, and he was saying that if for every person that's been diagnosed, probably there are another 9 out there. So this may be bigger than we think because we haven't done testing. So try to get ahead of this. Don't wait till you're told to, go home to do it. And now I want to go to some of the do's, which are important as well. So the first do, is if you can go above and beyond your policies, by all means do it, right? I mean, people move, they make organizations happen, right? And nobody costs this. So it's not the time to go cheap. It's not the time to not help people and just tell them, sorry, it wasn't my fault. If you have cash on the bank and you can help them flow through some of this situation, by all means do that. It is the right thing to do, okay? The other one, look at the guidelines for the Centers for Disease Control. They're really, really good guidelines. When you get a copy of this presentation, you're going to see that that's a hyperlink right there where it says guidelines. And we're also going to send you in the thank you email a copy of this whole. We put an article on this where that link is available as well. The other thing, think about family and medical leave, right? Do provide the time if there is somebody that has to care for an immediate family member. Please make sure that you afford them that time. But I'm going to say, like I said on the first bullet, go above and beyond. If it's not spouse, child, parent, maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's a grandparent. Give them the time because I think you want to do the right thing. Then make accommodations for people that are at risk and get ahead of that. I know that with staff in here, I've told them, look, you're likely going to be at risk. Am I getting this right? And if I am, by all means, start working from home now. Let's not wait. That is the right thing to do, because you're not that this person would necessarily be at risk if we don't do this, but let's not play with fire. Let's do the right thing. And then lastly, let's get as many employees as we can working remotely. It will really decrease the risk of transmission. Okay, it's really, really important that we do that. This is an exercise, a mathematical equation. The more we start working remote and doing social distancing, the better off we're going to be. And so please keep that in mind. Jill, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, and also I would say another do that we don't have on there is do make sure that you are doing everything that you can to stay up to date on the laws and the new measures that are being passed that will affect your business, because just yesterday the House of Representatives passed a corrected coronavirus relief bill. It still needs to pass the Senate, but it would provide some contingencies around emergency paid sick leave, emergency family FMLA, and some other provisions. So, make sure that if you have a partner like Newland Associates that you're working with that stays on top of these, make sure that, you're communicating with them. And we're trying to send out content all the time that has updates and these important things. So just wanted to put that as part of their dues.
Oh, for sure. And I have one more question here. Is the webinar available for replaying? I'd like to share with some of my managers for sure. I'm sure you can talk to Hannah about that, who's waiting patiently there. And we're going to be doing, let me just share this ahead of time. It's not GrowFL, but we're going to be doing a number of community webinars in the upcoming weeks at no cost. I mean, we do have, a fair amount of clients that pay for outplacement services. But if you're a small business and you have employees that are, minimum wage or close to it, we're going to be hosting about 3 weekly webinars on things around job search, dealing with change, things like that. You'll get the information later on. That's part of our community giving. We're going to be doing this throughout, covering all of Florida on a weekly basis for as long as we need to, because again, we want to chime in and sort of, help out. So when that becomes available, I'm sure GrowFL will share it with you. So again, if you're a small company and you cannot afford, an hourly paid, minimum wage employee outplacement services, give them this resource, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. If you have a professional manager, if I want to do something better than that, and we're there for you as well. So with that, I want to close it. But before we do, I want you to take that camera out again. Yeah. So go ahead, take the camera out. Okay, everybody. Okay, Ray, I see you, Ray. Come on, Rachid and Paul, get that camera out. And Joy and Nancy, come on, everybody, get the camera out. All right, and I want you to point at that little QR code. Do that one more time. And as you get it close, I'm doing it too. You're gonna see that it gives you a new QR code. And once you get that, what you're gonna get is access to our website. And basically it shows you can visit us online. You can use, become a fan on Facebook. If you click on the LinkedIn, you can go and like our page and follow our page. And we're gonna be providing more updates, from an HR side in all this stuff. So keep that in mind. And with that, I wanna wrap it up. And Hannah, if you wanna say anything else before we finish this, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert and Jill, for presenting. And thank you all for being flexible with us this morning. I know it was a last minute change, but I'm happy we were able to still host the webinar this morning. Like Robert said, anything that they'll be doing on their end, we will share with our audience on our end and vice versa. So look out for those things, and then look out for a webinar recording and slide deck and all of Robert and Jill's contact information going out later this afternoon. So thank you everyone again for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.